What are Chef Boyardee's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. First things first, this young lady truly lives up to her name as a professional chef, because boy is she cooking when it comes to how she helps out cryo-based comps. For the longest time, the freeze archetype was utterly dead in the water due to how the main functionality it carries, that being freezing enemies, just simply doesn't work 99% of the time anymore, not to mention how the damage of freeze units has only become less and less impressive over time, considering the constantly rising standards of modern damage dealers. However, Escoffier saw how raw the soup was, and decided to save the day. You see, her kit functions in a similar way to Chevreuse. If you only have Hydro and Cryo units in your team, then she'll heavily shred the res of enemies to those particular elements after using her skill, so that already offers all of the crowd DPSs on your account a clean damage boost. The main benefactors from this will be Ayaka and my sweet beloved Ganyu. The real Beastly can use her as well, but you'd rather play him in Moika-based melt teams anyway, so older cryo carries are finally gonna see viable use again in freeze comps. Ganyu already had melt before, of course, but this huge damage boost to her freeze teams will make them worth running again, thanks to the fact that she'll be doing enough damage to compensate for the fact that freeze isn't functional anymore. Ayaka, on the other hand, she's benefiting quite a lot here. If you've had her warming up the bench for quite some time now, then you might have actually caused a melt reaction with how long she's been sitting on that bench. However, with Escoffier's release, once again, you can finally compensate for the fact that freeze doesn't really do anything anymore, and do a whole lot more damage. All in all, she's the incredible cryo buffer that we've been waiting for. To all my fellow starving enjoyers of this long-forgotten element, rejoice, for at last, Hoyoverse has seen us all. This smug chef has some other positive qualities going for her as well. For instance, her ability to do some personal damage. She's able to be a sub-DPS in freeze teams if you tap her skill, meaning that she's able to lighten the load off of your cryo main DPSs quite a bit by offering her own solid contributions. This can be really nice in Ayaka teams, because if you miss any hits of her burst due to poor positioning, or the enemy moving unexpectedly, you can rely on Escoffier to cook and pick up the slack. If you're already a master Ayaka main, then perhaps this won't matter to you so much. But sometimes, this game absolutely loves throwing bosses at you that move around the place like they're trying to get their daily steps in. And considering that the Abyss is more single target centric than it's ever been compared to previous patch cycles, it's a likely scenario to find yourself in. So in such a case, Escoffier will be very handy when it comes to lightening that load. Plus, if you're playing a team like Ayaka, Lady Farina, Shenhe, and Chef Boyardee, where you're not having any problems generating a crud ton of cryo particles, you can easily shove Escoffier on a more damage-centric weapon, which aids the situation even further. And of course, if you have C1 Shenhe, that aids the situation even further. And in Ganyu teams, you're not gonna have much problems when it comes to missing damage anyway, because her Frostflake arrows have quite a wide AoE. But even so, having an extra sub-DPS cooking at the same time is only gonna help you clear faster. Also, where are all my fellow C1 Ganyu enjoyers at? Shout yourselves out, because our dear Coco Goat C1 reduces enemy cryo res upon Frostflakes hitting the enemy, so while you're dishing out her damage, you're also shredding the enemy's cryo res more, which benefits Escoffier at the same time. There's already a lot of cryo res shred in the team, so it'll be somewhat diminishing, but you'll still enjoy this small bonus nonetheless. Just wanted to throw that in there for anybody that may have a degree of investment on their Ganyu. So, us getting a premier sub-DPS as well as a buffer for this archetype? Yeah, consider me a happy camper. This unit's the whole package deal. Alright, with this next point I'm not gonna go on for too long, because genuinely, this isn't as interesting of a point as it was perhaps 1 year ago, but it still holds relevance, so we'll discuss it briefly now. Escoffier Ramsay can heal, therefore, you attain good fanfare synergy. I will say, this does mean that she's a major upgrade over Charlotte, a cryo healer that would have been used in order to enable the use of Lady Farina and Ayaka teams especially. The camera woman heals, that is her main gimmick, and that is all there is to her. However, Chef Boyardee's singing a different kind of recipe. She offers her crazy buffs and sub-DPS on top of her fanfare synergy too. This means that you're getting way more out of her than simply shoving her on the comp and missing out on other potential buffs due to needing a fanfare synergistic unit. So I will say, her synergy with our beloved Lady Farina isn't as arbitrary as most healers who share this quality, because Escoffier is genuinely bringing something new to the table in that regard, on a silver platter even, with the finest seasonings that she could personally source. I mean, come on, she's a chef. She's gonna be putting effort into what's coming to said table. So for that reason, it's quite nice to have a crowd support that's this great, while also being able to cover for fanfare. Hydro units are also going to be able to benefit from Escoffier too, because she shreds Hydro resistances as well. Oh dear, Hoyoverse, why did you do it again? They gave Mr. Settle Down another freaking viable team avenue. Okay, let's hold our horses. I'm not saying that Escoffier is going to be a brand new best-in-slot partner for him, but she will certainly open up some good new team comps that he can use, and considering how good her qualities are, I think that's pretty neat. I can envision a team of Novelette, Lady Farina, Sitlolly, and Pecoy RD being highly viable. I doubt it'll dethrone Celestia Killer Novelette, but it sure as heck will perform well. I feel that Hoyoverse does not know how to create a unit that doesn't buff this dude in some way, shape, or form at this point. Hoyo, try not to buff Novelette challenge. Level, literally unfathomable. Also, I should bring up that for all of my fellow C6 Lady Farina enjoyers, Escoffier is in fact going to be bringing a new type of team comp into the mix for us. I'm pretty eager to see how it performs. I have pretty solid expectations. I doubt that it'll be beating any Xilonen or Vape Plunge-based teams, but it'll serve as a viable alternative for sure. And okay, I'll mention him for the 2 people that still actually play this guy. Ugly Sunday is gonna benefit from Escoffier's release. Now go look up Sunday Honkai Star Rail on Google to bless your eyes. It's like what if Ayato wasn't utterly hideous? Okay, as splendiferous as this smug chef may be, we all burn our food sometimes. Perhaps we're cooking our shell-shaped pasta al dente because you're more of a fan of the chewier texture, but then you take it off when it's still a little too tough, and you have to put effort into eating it now. Point is, she still has some flaws that we gotta discuss. First off, don't overestimate how good she is as a character in terms of meta value. Yes, she's going to serve those such as myself that are dedicated long-term members of the Cryo Society. However, I wouldn't get her as a general support pickup, and I wouldn't get her with the expectation that she's going to restore your benched Ayaka or Ganyu back to their glory days. I expect her to do absolute wonders for their performance, don't get me wrong. However, I do want to highlight that the quality of current carries is really high. Like, the roster of main DPSs that we have as of now is genuinely insane. Moika Sitlolly is borderline game-breaking, for instance. You seriously have to do a lot in order to bring up old DPSs to be even moderate by current-day standards, hence why Escoffier Ramsay does precisely that. A lot. Because she has to. Small buffs wouldn't help these older units that are tied to a reaction that's more lost in the past than the freaking Ice Age itself. So while Escoffier will 100% help your old freeze carries, don't get her if the only reason you want her is to see Ayaka do Moika levels of damage performance. It's just not gonna happen. It'll certainly get your old freeze DPSs feeling good again, independent of the reaction that they used to thrive in. However, don't expect some miracle magic to make your neglected Ganyu with a level 8 charged attack do DPS on par with modern Knotline units. I'm really trying to emphasize this particular point. Escoffier won't turn Ayaka or Ganyu into Moika. Only invest into her if you're already a dedicated Cryo enjoyer that cares about the element and its units at a baseline. I wouldn't pull for her willy-nilly if you have zero interest in Cryo. Well, now that we have all of that cleared up, let's talk about some other flaws that she hosts. For starters, because you want to build her teams around the core of Hydro and Cryo units only, preferably speaking, you're gonna miss out on the chance to use powerful support such as Xilonen and Kazuha. Granted, she offers all the red shred you could ever want, so that's not too big of a deal, with Lady Farina taking care of whatever damage bonus percent you feel that you're lacking, but it's a shame that you're more limited in terms of what you can do with your teams. This does in turn mean that you're able to build teams that don't take up highly contested units such as those two, which does indeed lighten the load a bit when deciding your teams for your Abyss halves. However, it's still a restriction to be taken into account, especially when you consider that units such as Xilonen feature really good high primogen based investment, such as her C2 being extremely good for Novelette. But ultimately, I'd say the team variety is good, so it's not too bad. However, it's a shame that you won't be able to take full advantage of her kit if you try to put those kinds of supports in her teams. This then leads into the unfortunate fact that you're not really able to utilize effective grouper and Escoffier teams either, because you're not going to be able to use any Animo characters. To be honest, in the modern Abyss climate, this isn't that big of a deal. You can still just run a traditional freeze team if that would actually be good in the Abyss that's running. Escoffier's helping freeze units survive against bosses now, which is really handy. However, it's a shame that you can't make use of her excellent qualities in full alongside groupers at the same time, should the situation at hand actually benefit from that. Freeze has always historically been a team archetype that really enjoys groupers, but because it quite frankly just doesn't really work anymore, yeah. Besides, Ganyu's got great AoE with her burst and frost flakes, so you'll be fine. This is more so rough for Ayaka, who relies so heavily on good positioning when it comes to making the most out of her damage output. All in all, I really like what Escoffier represents. It's keeping in line with what Hoyo typically does when it comes to Genshin's meta, keeping old units relevant no matter what. Hoyo has every reason to just forget about the old crowd DPSs, especially when you consider that Ganyu's chronicled these days. I doubt that these units are on the forefront of Hoyo's mind anymore, so it's really cool that we're still getting buffs for them to this day. It was already cool that Moika was so good for Mount Ganyu, but now Freeze is good too. As somebody who's an extreme Cryo fan, I'm really happy. I've been coping with my Cryos for ages now, as it's been my favorite element for far too long, and it still is even now. I never gave up on it. So this unit's release just feels downright rewarding. How about yourself? Are you a fellow Cryo enjoyer that's just chomping at the bit to pull on her banner, or are you skipping her? Let me know down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturday, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video is able to tell you Chef Boyardee's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and don't forget to give your Escoffier Ramsay the lamb sauce so she doesn't crash out on you.